We have the honor and privilege of being a part of We Act Radio's local live-wire content here on WPWC 1480 AM, weactradio.com. Also, check out the Education Town Hall on Facebook. The Education Town Hall with Thomas Byrd is the District of Columbia's contemporary meeting place where all are welcome. The price of admission is your sincere desire to lend your voice and talents in making our education apparatus the premier model for this nation. The goal of the show is to facilitate the construction of effective community-supported solutions and foster the incitement of strategic transformative actions. To that end, we want stakeholders who are directly affected by this current system to find their voice and then act upon it. We want all others to know that the quality of public schools affects each of us, whether or not you have children in the schools. Excellent public schools are essential, at minimum, to the same degree as making sure that we have responsive and effective fire and police departments, as well as the other very important public services we all depend on. These are all benefits and shared responsibilities of living in communities. We are all certainly advantaged by their high quality, as much as we suffer collectively due to their lack thereof. It is therefore every citizen's responsibility to help improve our education system, because it's in everyone's best interest to do so. None of us can any longer sit idly by when the future prosperity of our young people and this city are at stake. So we call on parents, students, teachers, administrators, community members, policymakers, and yes, politicians to join us here at the Education Town Hall, which is the intersection where we can all meet and collectively do what has never been done before and do what should have been done a long time ago. So again, welcome and thanks for joining us here today on Washington's newest progressive radio station, We Act Radio, where the motto is, do something. It is indeed an honor and a pleasure to have you listeners here with us today, and it's indeed a greater honor and a pleasure to have two distinguished guests along with me in the studio today. Before we get to them and their introductions, I just want to do what I always do and thank our sponsors who are, without their support, we would not be here. They provide this access and this megaphone to talk back to the powers that be and who else is wanting to listen and hear our voices. So I want to thank our inaugural sponsor, DC Voice. Thank them for their support. I want to thank the 21st Century School Fund for their support. I want to thank the National Council of Negro Women, Washington section, for their support. And I want to thank our newest sponsor, Options Public Charter School, for their support. We indeed thank you all for helping us provide this service for the community. And if you're interested in sponsoring this show, please contact me, Thomas Byrd, THOMAS.BYRD at yahoo.com. That's thomas.bird@yahoo.com. We do indeed appreciate you giving us some thought and supporting us. So now let's get to this very important conversation today that we're going to be having around special ed. In studio with me today, as I said, I'm pleased and honored to have Ms. Shara Green, who's with the Children's Law Center, and Michelle Pianim. All right, I knew I was going to struggle with that. Pianim. So do forgive me for that. As she's the principal of Options Public Charter School. So what I'd like for you to do, Michelle, can I call you Michelle? I think that'll be easier. And if I call you Shara, would that be okay?
That's fine.
Fantastic. What I'll do, Michelle, is start with you. I want you to introduce yourself, tell a little bit about your personal background, as well as a little bit about Options, the mission, and what goes on there at Options. So, Michelle, please get us started today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having Options Public Charter School here. A little bit about myself. I have been the principal of Options for 1 year. Um, Before that, I was at the state superintendent's office where I worked in the Department of Special Education. I also taught for 7 years with an extreme special ed population. I did a master's of special education right after I finished a bachelor's of psychology, and so I'm really excited about special education and the things that are happening. Um, at Options, we have a mission to serve at-risk youth, students who may have been retained several times, who may be diagnosed with a disability such as emotional disturbance or an intellectual disability. We also serve students who may have been adjudicated or somehow have community issues, truancy at their previous school, and things of that nature. And so we have just about a 60 to 70% population of special education in our school.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here today at the Education Town Hall.
Thank you.
Shara?
I'm Shara Greer. I'm the Policy Director for the Children's Law Center. We are the district's largest legal services provider and the only one focusing on children. We provide assistance to over 2,000 children and families every year, focusing on children in foster care and children with special education and health needs.
Those children, let me ask quickly, those children that you support, how do they come to your attention?
A variety of different ways. We represent children in the foster care system, so we are appointed by the court to represent the children in the foster care system. We also have a medical legal partnership where we work with Children's National Medical Center and Mary's Center, and we actually have attorneys who are in the clinics working with the doctors when they identify special education needs often and health needs, and then we can assist the families to get the services they need.
Fantastic. I want to kind of start off with a question to you both. Tell our listeners what you think is happening currently in the nation's capital as it relates to special education. Anyone want to tackle that? They're pointing back and forth. So while you think about it, because I know there have been some challenges with regard to special education in the district. I'm one of many people across the city who hear horror stories about special education. And so, you know what? Let me back up from that. Let me ask a more basic question. Can you share with the listeners what is the process that one goes through, or families go through, with regard to special ed placement? What is that? I know there's a process, and can you share what that process is? Can either one of you share that process?
Well, are we talking about special ed placement as far as the school they will attend, or special ed placement as to how they're identified for special education
How they're
services?
identified for special ed.
Okay, so
And you're a former state superintendent
Right.
office, so I think that's
Right.
probably something you would know.
Well, you go through a process with the IEP team, and a lot of times when people identify IEP team, they include the parent and the school, usually a clinician who has done some type of testing on the student to identify a specific disability such as autism or emotional disturbance. And so it's a whole group of people who are there to try and help a student meet the needs of that student. And so that's usually the identification process. You go through some battery of testing, and then the team meets several times to determine whether the disability would be an appropriate classification for a student. But usually at Options, a lot of the students come to us. We're a 6th through 12th grade.
Mm-hmm.
They come to us already identified, and the students who are not, then we have a full special education team who goes through that process for them.
Fantastic.
I just want to add to that a little bit, just to sort of say I want to emphasize how important it is too for parents and families to be part of the identification process. Because really it's about the parents and the teachers working together to pay attention if there are developmental delays or if a child is struggling in class. And it even goes back before that. There's actually been a big push. I don't know if people have seen the buses with the, if your child isn't looking at you, look us up. And there's a whole series of billboards the city has put out there to try and get parents to really, because they're the ones who see their children every day, And if they're seeing their children not progressing appropriately, they can get services early. And the earlier they get the difficulties identified and the earlier they get services implemented, the better the outcome can be. Really, early intervention services are so important. So even in your preschool 0 to 3 age group, it's really important for parents to be paying attention, and for their preschools and teachers to be paying attention so they can get the help they need.
I have to agree with you, Shara. A lot of times, because we are 6th through 12th grade, we get the students who may not have been identified up through 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th grade. A lot of time, the educating of the parent is a big responsibility of the school, because they're thinking, well, my child has gone through 6th grade or even higher, and no one has said anything about their learning or their behavior or any of those other deficits. But it comes down to us really wrapping around the parent and getting some community services also involved.
Let me kind of circle back to a modification of my original question. With regard to special education in the nation's capital here in the District of Columbia, would you say that what's working in here in the district, and we can get into what's not working, but let's start with what's positive, what's working. Can anyone share with what's working? Anybody want to tackle that one?
I think we're seeing more good programs. I mean, I think it's important to sort of start. The district has not been in a good place in terms of being able to serve students who have special education needs. There's been a huge gap in programs and schools that were able to locally serve our student population. A lot of attention lately has been on how many of our children we actually have to send to Maryland and Virginia, because we just don't have the schools in the district that can meet the needs of our students. So the city has been working to try and have a more robust array of programs, both full-time programs as well as supplemental programs that can be provided in the local schools. So we're starting to move in the right direction, but we have such a huge gap between the need and the programs that we have a ways to go. So
I know the mayor has made a concerted effort, in the mayor and the education apparatus in the district, to bring kids back to neighborhood schools from those private placements. So can you talk a little bit about that? It sounds like you are for that strategy, if I hear you correctly, and I see you both nodding your head. So.
With some caveats. One of the concerns that we have had is there's a lot of discussion about bringing the students back, and I think everyone would prefer that the kids be educated in their local neighborhood schools. I mean, having peer interaction can be really important for children's development. Being in their communities is really important. But unfortunately, too often the conversation about bringing the children back is about money and saving dollars by bringing the children back to local schools, and not about spending that money, not at a Maryland school, but spending that money in the district school to provide the services and programs needed for that student. It's not, you have to build up the programs first. You can't just bring the children back and then leave them in a school that does not have the appropriate programs and services for them. So, yes, as long as we're building the programs, and I think that we still have a ways to go to really build the programs to be able to bring all the students back.
Great. For those unfamiliar with the show, we take a break at approximately every quarter of the hour, and we've reached that point currently. And so we're glad that you're along with us. And when we come back, we'll let Michelle respond to that as well. We're talking about special education today, and please stay with us. I guarantee if you do, we'll be right back.
To the question about do I think having an education radio show is a good idea? I think it's a tremendous idea. I think you need to have a continuous conversation and dialogue among the entire community about how well we're doing in terms of our performance and where we actually have challenges. And I think and it's not static. It is a process that evolves over time. Schools get better and some schools get worse, and so we've got to continue to have a conversation and give folks an opportunity to give insight and feedback about what they're seeing as a challenge challenge and what the opportunities are. And so I think any kind of a format that helps create that positive dialogue and discourse and honest conversation, I think could be critically important to our efforts as we try to make sure that all of our kids have access to a high-quality education.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor of Education, Deshaun Wright. And we look forward to having you as a studio guest at one time in the near future.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much,
Thank you, sir.
You're listening to WPWC We Act Radio, 1480 AM, weactradio.com.
I'm Nadine Ellis.
I'm Alini Ballard.
I'm Naturi Naughton.
I'm Jason George.
HIV began one person at a time.
And it will end one person at a time.
It just takes each one of us doing our part.
Start by knowing your status.
June 27th is National HIV Testing Day.
I've been tested for HIV. Have you? To find an HIV testing center near you, visit greaterthan.org.
Together, we can be greater than AIDS.
Does your child have difficulty controlling their anger or a history of academic failure in school? Options Public Charter School offers a therapeutic learning environment with small classroom sizes and on-site counseling services to help students succeed. Options PCS is now enrolling grades 5 through 11 for the upcoming school year. For more information, call Options PCS today at 202-547-1028. Options Public Charter School. Exceptional education for exceptional students.
You're listening to WPWC We Act Radio, 1480 AM, weactradio.com.
I think it's a good idea to have a program dedicated to education in the District of Columbia.
My name is Mary Lord. I represent Ward 2 on the D.C. State Board of Education, and of course,
Classroom gets launched in January.
Okay. All right. And we are now back live. Thank you for being along with us today. We are talking about special education in the District of Columbia, and I am very proud and pleased to have in studio with me for this conversation Ms. Shara Greer and Ms. Michelle Pianim. All right. She's the principal of Options Public Charter School, and Shara is with the Children's Law Center. So we agreed that I will call them by their first names, Shara and Michelle. Shara had an opportunity last segment to respond to my question regarding the mayor and the education powers that be bringing students back from private placements and putting them back into local schools. So, Michelle, I want to give you an opportunity to weigh in on that as well.
Okay, thank you. I personally, when I was over at Aussie, had the opportunity to go to visit several different non-publics that our students were in, anywhere from New Hampshire to Maine to Tennessee and all in between. I think a lot of people don't realize that our students are in 48 states across the United States, and I don't think that they're utilizing or understanding the skills to come back and reintegrate back into the district and do well. And so the mayor's initiative, to me, is a good one. And I agree with Shara, the programs have to be there. Options Public Charter School has been in existence for almost 17 years. Mm-hmm. It's always been our mission to serve at-risk youth, and a lot of the students who are coming back from non-public and from day schools, even in Maryland and Virginia, like Shara mentioned, are utilizing Options as a step-down program as a way to still get their services met, but to see if they can reintegrate back into the district without having the difficulties that they had that sent them or got them into another state or a more restrictive program.
Let me ask this question. With regard to that strategy of bringing kids back and having the services available for them to come back to, do you think that overall the system is doing a good job of providing adequate services here in the district and not just looking, you mentioned, Sharon mentioned it shouldn't be an issue of money or saving money, but are they actually bringing them back and having those students provided with the same quality of education that they were receiving at their previous placements? Do you think?
I think that's a really two-part question, okay. But for the most part, the programs are being developed, and the mandate is in every public school to accept who you whoever enrolls, if a student comes and enrolls, it's a school of choice for most public charter schools. And then you have the neighborhood schools that DCPS has to develop programs to meet the needs of the students. For the public charter school boards, I think it's happening. You know, the public charter school board is also saying, okay, develop the programs, meet the students' needs, but there's also a new push for a centralized location for schools to utilize, and that is at Options. OSSI and the public charter school board has partnered up and developed a co-located classroom for students to be able to come from other schools, still get their special education needs met, but here in the district. I think the biggest emphasis is the programs have to be out there for parents to understand what's there and what can be used. If the parents don't know, then it's almost as if we've developed these programs and the parents don't understand why.
Okay, so it sounds like we may not be doing the best job possible of notifying, informing parents of what's available. Is that a fair assessment of what I'm hearing you say partially?
I think it boils down to educating the parent about special education, about what services look like, and about what characteristics a disability brings along with it. Not every parent who has an autistic child really understands what autism is, or even emotional disturbance, what the triggers are, what the behaviors will look like. And so having these programs kind of brings parents in and involves them in the process.
I do think it's difficult, though. I mean, one of the things that we've really struggled with is there is a real lack of transparency around what programs exist. It's no news to anyone at DCPS that we've testified repeatedly before the council saying we need a comprehensive list. We want a comprehensive list of what programs exist at what schools, and it doesn't. So if you're a parent or an advocate, and you know you've got a screening by a professional that your child needs this service, you don't know what schools offer it, and so it becomes very difficult for you to make sure that your child is getting the appropriate education. So that would be something great if the city would actually come out with a comprehensive list of the services they have.
Oh, that would be wonderful if the city or some other organization, a nonprofit. I know Great Schools puts out the School Chooser along with Fight for Children. So maybe if it's a nonprofit listening, maybe they might want to engage in that exercise. But I wanted to ask something that I've heard in the past, that there was, and I don't know if either of you can respond, but I'll put it out there anyway. I heard that there was a large number of misdiagnoses of kids, and that put them on the special education track, if you will. I'm maybe not using the appropriate terms, but do you think that happened, and do you think we're getting better at that now, or do you have a sense of that? Shara?
I can't really speak to that. I'll be honest. Most of the people that we see, it's the exact opposite problem, which is they've had an issue that has been left unrecognized for too long, rather than being overdiagnosed. So that's not something that we see in our office.
Okay. So I'll move on to a question with regard to what is your organization's role in addressing special ed needs?
Well, Options Public Charter School has made it its mission to serve students who either have a diagnosed disability or have some at-risk behavior. So we have a lot of students who have community issues, may have fallen into wrong place at the wrong time, or cultural awareness is more. Most of our students come from Ward 7 and 8, and I think may have some issues with understanding the importance of schooling and accessing the appropriate services for what they need. When they come to us, usually it's because it's a 6th through 12th grade school, they either have already been diagnosed or they may have been retained several years, and we're wondering, okay, you're 16 in the 8th grade, what's going on? And so it's Options' duty to take a look and see, is this a disability, or is this something that happened because of background or just circumstance, because of living conditions or any of those things?
Shara, what's your organization's role in special ed?
We have several roles. We are a legal services organization, so we directly represent parents, guardians, other people who are the educational decision makers for children. And so we have our clients come to us, and usually, always, because they are having a problem not getting the services that are appropriate for their child. So we are individual advocates for individual students trying to make sure that they get the services that they need, which we hope helps push the system and helps certainly get the services for our clients. We also have a policy component, and that's sort of my role as the policy director. We try very hard to take the lessons that we learn from our on-the-ground representation to identify what are the systemic issues. Sort of if we're having the same problem come up over and over again, how can we help fix that? And so we do a lot of work with the council as well as with DCPS and with the Office of the State Superintendent to try and change the policies and the regulations so that the city gets better.
Let me ask you, since you mentioned policy, does your organization say look to other jurisdictions in terms of what's working best in those areas or best practices in those areas, and compare them with what the district is doing and try to come up with recommendations? Well, how do you form your policy platform or decisions?
It's some looking at other jurisdictions, and I'll give a specific example, and I know that OSSI is also looking at other jurisdictions to try and address this particular issue. Because we have so many students who are in charter schools, especially a lot of the charter schools are small, and they don't necessarily have the resources to have a full array of special education services. But we want all of our publicly funded schools to be available to as many of our students as possible. So how do you solve that problem of small education agencies, one or two schools that don't have the resources? How do you make sure that they can serve their students who have special education needs? One of the places that we've been looking at, and I know that OSSI has as well, is there are several jurisdictions with rural populations who have lots of small, just single school education agencies, and how they've been able to pool resources to be able to meet this need. So that's one of the ways in which we look to other jurisdictions and get creative to try and solve some of the problems that the district faces.
Let me ask you, Michelle. Options has been around for 16 years, you say? Mm-hmm. So yes. I assume that over the course of time, the school is getting better and better at what it does. So where have you you've only been with the school about a year or so, right? So I don't know if you can answer this up, but do you think the services and the special ed services at Options are better now than what they used to be, or talk a little bit about the journey that Options has taken place, the journey at Options with regards to special ed?
I certainly think that special education services are getting better and better. I think it's the use of data and how we're assessing our students. I think the trouble around it is more so expecting special ed students to meet the same targets as general ed students, and that's one thing that the district kind of mandates right now. I guess that's a struggle for Options, but as it relates to special ed, it's getting better and better, especially with the guidance of other agencies and things of that nature. But as we look at our data and what our students can and cannot accomplish, or can and cannot, what targets they can and cannot meet, we do feel we're getting better, but we need support.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fantastic. We have reached the bottom of the hour already. This first half hour has gone by so fast. We are indeed glad you're listening to the show today, and we're glad to have our distinguished guests in the studio with us. And so I guarantee if you stay with us, we will be right back.
For the District of Columbia. The question is whether or not I think it's good to have a town hall focused on education. My answer is absolutely. Education is a public endeavor, and schools cannot accelerate student achievement alone. Therefore, it behooves us all to do whatever we can on behalf of our children and in order to accelerate their achievement. So I'm excited I hope I get invited to the show, and I will be listening.
Thank you so much, and indeed you will be invited. As soon as we possibly can get you in the studio, you will be invited. Thank you so much for your comments.
Thank you.
All right.
You're listening to WPWC, We Act Radio, 1480 AM, weactradio.com.
Hey, it's your boy Richard Fowler. Catch my show every Friday nights from 8 to 10, only on We Act Radio. It's time that people understand that they need to inform themselves, empower themselves, and get their voice back. That's the only way we can create real change in this country, if we unite together, and that's what we do every Friday night. We hope you can join the movement with us.
Take Action News with David Schuster, Saturdays from 12 to 3 on We Act Radio, 1480 AM and weactradio.com.
Well, for me, it's always been, you report the facts. You report like hell, let the chips fall where they may. And the truth ultimately is what's going to sort of help our society and help all of us. I don't think progressives want a thumb on the scale on the facts. They just want the facts out there. You let the facts out, and progressives will tell you, we're going to win 70% of the time. You may quibble with the percentages or whatnot, but I think that's just sort of what progressives are looking for, and I think that's where this all sort of meshes with my interest as a journalist. And my interest as a journalist is report the facts. Here's what's going on. Here's what the facts say. Here's what history says. Here are the lessons we know we have learned. And let people draw their own conclusions. And I think what's so unfortunate right now in the world of broadcast media is I do think that a lot of conservative radio, certainly conservative television, they're not interested in facts. And that's ultimately where I think conservative media is going to have its downfalls. That Americans are hungry. They're just hungry for basic information, hungry for basic facts. You report like hell. You let the chips fall where they may. I think it's natural for all of us who care, who are passionate about politics, who feel like we have a sense about the difference between right and wrong. I think it's okay to let that be part of your coverage. It's important for all of us as broadcasters and journalists. In this day and age, we have to be authentic. You can't be the person who's up in the ivory tower that comes down and tells people, now you must eat your peas. No, it's all about, we all have personalities, and I think it's being aware sometimes of our own bias, but also being open to the idea that sometimes we're wrong, but we have a dialogue, and we have a passionate dialogue, and we care about this country, we care about this community, and I think that sort of passion is what carries us through.
Hear more from David Schuster, Saturdays from 12 to 3 on Take Action News on We Act Radio, 1480 AM and weactradio.com.
This is Margaret Flowers.
And I'm Kevin Zeese. Join us every Monday morning, 11 a.m. for Clearing the Fog.
Speaking truth to expose the forces of greed.
Start the week with your eyes open.
The fog.
The forces of greed that spin news stories for the benefit of the 1%.
Each week we feature guests who are working to expose these truths and offer real solutions to the current crises we face.
Knowledge is power, and with knowledge you will be empowered to act to shift the power to the people.
Monday mornings at 11 a.m. on weactradio.com or 1480 a.m.
You're listening to WPWC, We Act Radio, 1480 AM, weactradio.com.
Hi, I'm Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer newspaper, and you've asked whether I think a show on education is a good idea for the District of Columbia, and I would give unequivocal yes, it is. Information is power. We always know that. But information about education, resources, the politics, the finances, the what our young people could and should be achieving, and what should be taught in the classroom is an exceptional. You can't talk enough about it. Let me just say that. And I'm so glad that you are having the show. Continue to do the good work that you're doing, and folks out there, you just keep listening. If there's something you don't hear on the show, I'm sure that the folks here would love to hear from you. And make sure it's a topic for an upcoming show. So keep on listening.
All right, we are back live. Thank you so much for being here with us today on the Education Town Hall, which is the intersection where we can all meet and collectively do what has never been done before, and do what should have been done a long time ago. Thank you for joining us today on We Act Radio, where the motto is, do something. I'm pleased to have in studio with me today Ms. Shara Green, who's with the Children's Law Center, and Ms. Michelle Pianim. I got it right that time, folks, I think, who is the principal at Options Public Charter School. I want to thank you both again for being here on the Education Town Hall here at the WPWC 1480 AM studios in the heart of Anacostia, Ward 8. We were talking about special ed during our first half an hour, and we'll continue talking about special ed because that's our focus for today. What I want to do as we move into this second half hour, I want to get into something that's of vital importance nationally, really, and that is measuring of special ed students. You know, we are in this era of high-stakes testing, and there's so much at stake with regard to teachers and principals and funding and the like. So how are we doing? Let's talk a little bit about measuring special ed students. Is that working now? Is there room for improvement? And if so, what needs to be improved? Let's talk a little bit about measuring special ed students. Who wants to start?
I don't have a problem starting, especially since I'm at a school and we're continuously testing our students. A lot of testing that schools do is based on their own knowledge of how a student is doing and what levels they're on and things of that nature. However, there is standardized testing that's DC-wide, which is called the DC CAS, and all students, especially for secondary, it's 6th, 7th, 8th, and 10th grade students test.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the challenge for a school like Options, and would be similar for any school that has a huge population of special ed students, is that the special education students are expected to or are measured the same as a general ed student.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a big concern of mine as it relates to being equal for the students who may have some deficits, and how to measure them properly if they're not on the same level as a general ed student.
So do you, as a matter of general principle, do you think that special ed students should be measured in the same way as regular ed students?
I think with modifications, and they exist, but I think all schools in the district are measured on the same type of framework,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a problem. To be honest with you, if a school has a population that's at risk, so you have a lot of teen parents or
Mm-hmm.
a lot of students who maybe have been arrested or adjudicated and they have those type of needs, or a huge population of free and reduced lunch, then you have cultural issues,
Mm-hmm.
and those sometimes contribute to learning as well. But if they have a diagnosed disability, which 60 to 70% of Option students do, the school has to be measured differently. The same measures can't be in effect for this school and a school with no special ed students, and that's what's currently happening.
Oh boy, that's enlightening. Shara, with regard to the Children's Law Center, what's your policy with regard to measuring special ed students, or do you all have a policy, or what are your thoughts about that?
We don't really have a policy. I mean, our measure of success is, can we, for our individual clients, get them into a program that will allow them to fulfill their potential?
Mm-hmm.
And for every child, that's different. I think it's one point I want to make in this part of the conversation is, when we talk about special ed students, the variety of needs and ability to either meet or exceed their general education peers is very different. I mean, it's very different if you're talking about a child with severe autism versus a child who has a slight delay in the ability to read.
Mm-hmm.
Those are very different students. They're going to have very different potentials and abilities. And you want both of them to succeed as much as they possibly can, but you can't measure them the same way. You can't have them be held to the same standard in terms of what success is. They have different levels of success and different types of success.
So I'm sorry, would you
I just
respond?
wanted to piggyback a little bit and say that I think for every special education student, they have what's called an individualized education plan, and the whole purpose of any school setting is to meet them where they are, is to address the needs that they have at this current time and keep them moving forward or upward in the education system. What's troubling is that we often get these students who may be in 10th or 11th grade and are reading on a kindergarten level, and they're expected to test or to be measured statewide. And so some type of system needs to be in place for those type of students who come to us and they have the delays or the deficits that their peers do not.
Okay. I want to kind of broaden this thinking out. How do the challenges we are facing here in this area different or mirror similar jurisdictions across the nation? Is that from your perspectives? Do you have a sense of that? How are we doing in comparison to other jurisdictions with regard to our challenges? Do they face the same challenges that we face, or is this unique to the District of Columbia? What do you think?
I absolutely think that it's similar to other inner city districts. If you look at Chicago, you look at Georgia, or even LA, they have deficits, especially if you have a big city with a lot of minorities. That's what DC is mostly comprised of now, is low income or poverty induced minorities, especially in Ward 7 and 8. That's our most troubling area. However, there's some bright lights in that, and I think the schools do a good job of looking at that. And so it's common with any inner city. I think we're a little bit behind as it pertains to educating our special ed students and having the programs that are necessary to meet all of their needs. We have programs that are very specific for disabilities. What we don't have is an array of programs that can meet every child or every disability that is comprised in this city. You have anywhere from autism to emotional disability to intellectual disability and all in between, sensory disorders. And I'm not sure that the programs for all of those disabilities are here. Certainly at Options we service a lot of those disabilities, not all of them.
So it sounds like I'm hearing something here, and correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like I'm hearing that when you have areas of high poverty and the other social ills that go along with that, that tends to increase the number of special ed students in that particular area. Is that something that I heard, or did I hear wrong in that?
Not necessarily. I think that maybe the over-identification or under-identification issues are there. Many times, if there is an area with comprised of a low poverty or a high number of minorities, sometimes the school systems don't mirror the higher income areas, and that is somewhat of an issue as well.
So now let me kind of break it down even further. Do more of your special ed students come from east of the river, or in comparison to those west of the park? I mean, you have higher numbers east of the river or higher numbers west of the park? Or I mean, so that's what I'm trying to get to. I mean, I would think that you probably don't have a high number of folks coming to your school west of the park, but you probably have a higher number of folks east of the river coming to your school. Is that
well, almost all of our population is from Ward 7 and 8. We have a small amount of students who may be in Ward 5 because that's where our school is located. The other wards, like you said, west of the park, we don't have that representation.
Okay. What is your experience, Shara, with regard to students who come from high poverty backgrounds? You find that there are more special ed placements in the District of Columbia versus those who come from a different background?
I think that, I'm not sure if it's an issue of background. I think it's more of if you are from a family that has the financial means to put you into a private program themselves, they're likely to do that, especially given the struggles that DCPS and the local schools have had in serving the needs of their children. So I do think you see in wards 3 and wards 1 and 2 more children who their parents are putting them into private programs, where for parents who don't have the financial means to pay for private school, they're in the local school. So I think that's one of the reasons why you're seeing that difference.
All right. We've reached the 3/4 mark of the show. We're glad you're along with us today, but we have to take our final break. Final pause for the cause. So please stay with us. If you do, I guarantee we will be right back.
Reverend Anthony Motley, President, Founder, CEO of Inner Thoughts Incorporated, a Ward 8-based nonprofit educational program development organization. We write curriculums and program activities for the young and old in Ward 8. I think that it is very important to have a show, radio show on education, so that the word can get out about the things that are impacting, the educational system in our city. I think it's time that people begin to talk aloud about these issues, and I think that it's beyond political considerations. This is a matter of survival, and we've come from I'm a product of the DC public school system, and we've come from a grand tradition, and it's just it so happens that over the years people have watered down our educational system and created the kind of dysfunctionality, I think on purpose, so that they could eliminate certain people from the workforce in this city. And so I think it's important that we begin to talk about these issues and share with the residents of the District of Columbia the importance of education and the direction that education is going in. And now we have this great debate about traditional schools versus charter schools, and when we all know that there was at one point just a one-room schoolhouse. So we want to say yes, the debate is important, the discussion is necessary for the betterment of our city and the residents who live here.
Thank you, Reverend Motley.
You're listening to WPWC, We Act Radio, 1480 AM, weactradio.com.
Friends, David Schuster here, and all of us at We Act Radio are so proud of our neighbors here in Southeast D.C., especially one of our partners, the Ark. The Ark is at 1901 Mississippi Avenue Southeast. It's the home to some of Washington's best, including the Washington Ballet, the Levine School of Music, Boys and Girls Club, and the Children's Health Project. All provide a number of programs and services within the very same facility. The Ark is also home to the Ark Theater, the only theater east of the river, which hosts a variety of dance, music, and theatrical shows each year. Almost everything you could want is at the Ark, so stop by and see them. The Ark, 1901 Mississippi Avenue in Southeast. For more information, visit the Ark's website, www.thearkdc.org, or call 202-889-5901. The Ark, part of Southeast D.C.
You're listening to WPWC, We Act Radio, 1480 AM, weactradio.com.
My name is Philip Pinnell. I'm the Executive Director of the Anacostia Coordinating Council and the President of the Congress Heights Community Association. I think it's excellent that there is a show on education here in the District of Columbia. It's been too long in coming. And it's good to have that type of forum where people can actually, actually have access to the airwaves. And it's not something that is just discussed in some meetings, and if you're not there, you don't know what's going on. And here we now can truly have an expanded community conversation regarding educational issues. Great success. Look forward to it. That's all I had to do.
Thank you, Mr. Pinnell, for your comments. We look forward to having you as a in-studio guest in the near future. Thank you so much. All right, and we are now back live. Thank you for being here with us. You are listening to the Education Town Hall with yours truly, Thomas Bird, here on WPWC 1480 AM, We Act Radio. Check us out on weactradio.com. We are having a very wonderful conversation here about special education today. In studio with me are Ms. Shara Greer, who's with the Washington Law Center, and also with me is Michelle Pianim, principal of Options Public Charter School. I'm finally getting these names right this morning, folks. Thank you for indulging my slips of the tongue and my fat-tonguedness. It's from my heart. I mean, from my head and not my heart, because I indeed admire you ladies and believe in your mission and the work that you do. For the last segment of the show, we always like to go to a more positive note and leave folks on a positive note level. So let's shift gears and talk about something we were talking about off mic, Sharon, and that was the early intervention now going on in the District of Columbia. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I mean, this is an area where the city is making some significant progress. Getting services to a child as early as possible, as soon as delays start to appear, is one way to really get better outcomes. If you can help a child when they're 3, there's a decent chance, depending on what the disability is or the concern is, that by the time they actually enter school, you might actually be able to have them on track with their peers or exceeding their peers. If the delay goes unnoticed till their 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, it becomes much more difficult to catch that child up to their peer group.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the places the city has been investing is in that sort of 0 to 5 group.
Mm-hmm.
DC used to be, and technically still is, sort of one of the most restrictive states in terms of providing services to the 0 to 3 group. In DC, you have to have a delay of more than 50% in one of the key areas to be able to access early intervention services. This summer, DC has proposed and is going to go forward with changing that, so that you only have to have a 25% delay in 2 areas to be able to access services. And their prediction is this is going to double the number of children that they're going to be serving, and is a real step forward in moving the district to be sort of more in the middle of the pack in terms of that 0 to 3 population, that really key central group to make sure that you're providing them with services. They've also done some really good work with the 3 to 5 year olds. That's sort of how they break it up in terms of services they provide, and putting a lot of resources into early stages, which was a sort of revamped way of looking at the 3 to 5 population, put a lot of resources there. And we're definitely seeing some progress in terms of the kids who are about to enter preschool and kindergarten, getting appropriate screening, and then, once they're identified with the services they need, then actually connecting up with those services. It's not perfect. We have ways to go, but we are definitely making progress in that key early stage.
Yeah, you mentioned early stages. Does all the screening take place through that organization? Because I believe that's an organization within DCPS, if I'm correct.
Yes, it's an organization within DCPS, and they do the screening of the 3 to 5 year olds.
Okay, fantastic. When we go to you, Michelle, and talk a little bit about, off mic, we were talking a little bit about the vocation program and some of the positive things in that area. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, well, Options, while I emphasized a lot about our special ed population, even though a lot of the students do come with the special ed diagnosis or even some deficits, they're able to access our full vocation education program, which is comprised of business and technology, and they work with the NIFTY program to do entrepreneurship. We have a culinary program, and the students, even 2 of them this year, competed nationally, and 1 for the district, went on to Missouri and a couple of other states to compete, and they even got scholarships to the Culinary Institute of America in New York. We have a full JROTC program for both high school and middle school, and then we have cosmetology and barbering who compete also nationally. And so even though the students come with what a lot of people feel is a deficit, we're able to give them life skills for them to move on into some type of either profession. They can graduate with hours towards their cosmetology or even culinary programs. They can even have their food handler's license by the time they graduate. And then to piggyback on that, we have a full enrichment program of cheerleading. We won the football championship bowl last year for district charters. We have girls and boys basketball, track and field, volleyball, and lots of other sports and activities that general ed settings also have. We want our special ed students to access the most that they can in their educational facilities.
Fantastic. We are running out of time, but I want to get in one final question and have you share your thoughts on this last general question. And that is, do you think the city is headed in the right direction with special education? Who wants to?
Well, I'll start with that. I think Options was always headed in a direction to try and assist the students of the district. But I think now the district is catching up and saying, okay, we have this need, and how can we better service them across the district, not just in these comprehensive areas? Because even though our students come from Ward 7 and 8, it's certainly open to all sorts of students. With the type of programs that we have and the type of services that we offer with our full behavior staff and all of our counselors in-house is certainly open. It's just getting it out there to the parents and saying, if your child has a need, you know, these are the type of programs that are there. And so, like you said, maybe we need to develop a manual or some type of guide as to what's out there for the district.
Okay. Let me ask you regarding Options. How are you doing with your enrollment? Is that I know around this time of year, schools are struggling with getting registrations.
Right. So we accept up to 400 students. Right now we have 370 enrolled or so. So we do have some room for students who are still looking for a placement.
Hear that, folks? They have some room over there. I want to turn to you, Shara. Do you think the district is heading in the right direction?
I think we're heading in the right direction. I think we have a ways to go. Not to be pessimistic, but it is a big gap that we have had for a long time in our ability to serve our special education population, and we really need to focus on it. And I will say, while we're going in the right direction, we as a city need to put resources and time and energy and focus on making sure that we continue to move in the right direction and that we are really making the investment that's necessary into our local schools and into our special education programs.
I have to agree with that. I think that the city as a whole doesn't understand the costs associated with educating the students who may have an IEP or may have some individual needs.
Wonderful. We've got a lot in today. It's been indeed a pleasure to have you both here with us. Folks, I've been talking to Shara Greer, who's with the Children's Law Center, and Michelle Pianim, who's the principal at Options Public Charter School. And I want to say your building, as I mentioned earlier, means a lot to me because that's where I first entered into DCPS in kindergarten when the former name of the school was Kingsman Elementary School. And I remember the day when my mother dropped me off at kindergarten, and I cried when she left. So I am so pleased to hear that the good work that goes on in that building, because that building has a very special place in my heart. Shara, I want to thank you and your organization for the wonderful work that you all do, because it's sorely needed. And I want to wish you both much success in your respective endeavors with the work that you both do. And I thank you both for being here today on the Education Town Hall, because this is a platform for everyone. Like I said in my commentary, this is the intersection where we can all meet and collectively do what has never been done before. And so, without the audience, who I'm so pleased that you were along with us today, this show would not be possible. So I want to thank the audience for being here, my wonderful listeners. And also, tell your friends if they weren't able to listen live, they can go to Mixcloud and find the Education Town Hall. So again, thank you for being here with us. Until next week, Thursday at 11 a.m. in the Education Town Hall with yours truly, Thomas Bird. Peace.
Diversified Media Enterprises. I'm Doug Cunningham. Activist, author, and retired auto worker Greg Shotwell says if the auto workers union he loves is ever to reverse its concession union he loves is ever to reverse its concession union he loves is ever to reverse its concession union he loves is ever to reverse its concession union he loves is ever to reverse its concession union he loves is ever to reverse its concession union he loves is ever to reverse